Greetings, people of the internet. This is Scott with CircWorks, and this is 100 Days of Making Comics, the show where I put aside at least 30 minutes a day in my busy schedule to work on my own personal comic book projects. I'm working on a book called Young and the Dead. It's kind of kids versus zombies, Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead, and so that's what I'm working on. Anyway, so yesterday I briefly talked about some character design. I'm working on my script right now, and I'm kind of hashing out. I'm just getting into like working with dialogue, and when you work with dialogue, you kind of have to give each of your characters a different voice. So you're not only introducing your characters' visual aspects, but you're adding personality to them as well. So yesterday I talked more about the visual side of that. Just briefly, I actually had to cut it short because I was going to see an early movie. I went and saw Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which was awesome. And I liked it so much, I went back and saw it for a second time. Actually, my brother called me, and he was going to see a double feature of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and Godzilla at the local drive-in, which is awesome. If you guys are fortunate enough to have a drive-in theater at where you guys live, then you'll know what it's like. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, it's the only one really around in the state, and there's just not. I mean, it's something that it's very hard to find nowadays. So I always really enjoy going, and every time I go, it seems like I always wonder, is this the last time that I'm going to go? So I bring my kids because I want them to experience that and everything. But one thing they did, I guess they upgraded all their projectors to digital. So I figure if they're still investing new money in it, so they're probably in it for a little while longer. So hopefully that'll be around. I'll get to see some more movies at the drive-in. So had a good time with that. First movie didn't even start till like 9 o'clock, so double feature. So by the time Godzilla got around, I was I don't know, I was a little tired. Maybe I just didn't enjoy that one as much as Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. But I don't know why I'm talking about movies. I should be talking about comics. So back to what we were talking about before. Again, I was talking about the visual aspects of character design. I shared a few of my characters from my story. So now I guess I'll talk a little bit about personalities and how I create personalities for my characters. So let me just give you a little bit of background. This character in the middle, his name is Sam Young, and hence the name of the comic book is Young and the Dead. Some people refer it to The Young and the Dead, but it's just Young and the Dead because that's actually the character's last name. So Sam Young and his little brother Tad Young. These two characters are essentially kind of based on myself at kind of age 11 and my brother, who's about 4.5 years younger than me. And it kind of helps to, I mean, it's not exactly me. It's kind of a, I don't, how would I explain? As a kid, I was sort of the straight-laced kid. I guess I tried to do what was right and not get into too much trouble, but I did go out and have fun and all that stuff. So I kind of think of things like that when I'm writing characters. What would this character that's essentially sort of based on me do at that age and everything? And then we've got this other character, Mitch, who is based on probably one of my best friends growing up, and we've sort of fallen apart. I haven't seen him in like forever, but he was a big troublemaker, and he was always getting me into trouble, and he's kind of a little bit of a pervert. So that's, and there's always, it seems like there's always that kind of character in some of those 80s movies. I think there's always that troublemaker character. So I also wanted to capture certain tropes that were popular in those, like Goonies and again Monster Squad. There's a whole slew of those type of movies. Even like E.T., because there a lot of that did center around the kid characters and things like that. So let's see. So what else we got here? So when I think about these characters, at least for me, it's easy to just go back and think, well, you know, what would say this character Mitch? What would he do in a certain situation? What would he say? And I can pretty. It's easy for me because I just go back to what these real characters that they're sort of based on, how they would react and everything, and it's to me that kind of comes natural. Then there's some characters that are just, you know, pretty much products of my imagination. This character Ox, that's short for Oksana. She is, she's sort of the heavyset, kind of the fat kid of the crew, but like I mentioned yesterday, she's not really, you know, she's strong, she's into sports and everything, she's a bit of a tomboy. She's of Russian descent, and this is back in this takes place back in the 80s, so right, you know, in the middle of the Cold War. So she, you know, sometimes she gets a lot of flack for that, so she's got a little bit of a chip on her shoulder. So she's always kind of got something to prove and kind of show how tough she is and everything. This character, Lloyd, he is, and I think I've talked a little bit about him before, but he's based on a couple different people that I grew up. There was one kid in school that he had this jacket, and he would come to school and he would sell candy, and he had all this candy, you know, on the lunch. You weren't really supposed to do that, but during lunch he would sell candy and stuff like that, and so he always had all this candy in his jacket, or he always had these things in his jacket that, you know, it's like he always, whatever you think you would need, almost like a Batman's utility belt, he would have in his jacket. So that's kind of that's part of, or that character. The kid that he was based on, he was kind of a troublemaker as well, which this character really isn't. Like I said, this one's kind of an amalgam of a few different characters. What else can I say? So he's kind of, the thing about him, and I think to me this is probably one of my favorite characters, Lloyd here, because he's kind of the nerdy kid. He's kind of an outcast. He's like a latchkey kid. You know, he's really into, like I said, Dungeons and Dragons and just, you know, all that stuff right now that is really cool, or you know, I don't know if it's really cool, but that's a little more, I guess I don't want to say mainstream, but a little more accepted now as far as comic books and things like that. Back in the 80s, that wasn't so cool. So he's kind of the outcast, but the cool thing is, when the zombie apocalypse goes down, he's got all these skills. He knows all about zombie movies. He knows, you know, he makes all these weapons and things out of wood and you know, and whatever. So and he just kind of knows what to do based on all this kind of fantasy world that he's been living in. So he really steps up and he kind of becomes one of the heroes. And so those are kind of my major characters. I've got some other characters here too. These two characters here are brother and sister. I don't know if you can see that. That's Rocky and Stephanie, and they're kind of I don't want to say this character is a love interest of the main character Sam, but he does kind of you know, he has kind of a little crush on her, and I don't think this is going to develop into anything more than that. They're kind of more friends or whatever, but because this is, you know, I don't know, that it doesn't seem like that's something I really want to get into. But the deal with these guys is they're kind of new to the neighborhood, and they moved in after the main character Sam and his brother Tad, their parents got divorced, so they ended up moving, and these characters moved into their house, which if you see in the background, they're kind of in this tree house thing here. So the tree house is in the backyard of this house where the main characters used to move, and used to live, and these new characters kind of moved in. So there's more to that in the story and everything. But he's this character. He's kind of the jock. He's kind of the, you know, I don't know if he's a popular kid in school or whatever, probably, or he's just, you know, he kind of thinks he's, you know, the best thing since sliced bread. He's kind of conceited and everything, and kind of, you know, puts other people down. She's kind of the character that kind of has to intervene and say, you know, come on, you know, be cool about this and all that stuff. So, anyway, it's hard for me to explain. It really works it itself all better when I work with the dialogue, and you see the main thing I want to try to do is create these different characters that really there's some dynamicism. Is that the way? Dynamic. I can't pronounce anything today. There are some. There's some character aspects that they don't always get along and they fight, or sometimes it's just like playful back and forth. Like these two characters here, they kind of show up together, Ox and Lloyd, and so they've been hanging out beforehand, and they do get along. They're friends, but they do kind of bicker back and forth just about stuff like friends do. So I want that kind of dynamic there when, you know, the way the different characters interact. So it's good for me to kind of create, as well as visually. I talked yesterday about separating your characters visually so they don't all look the same. So if you draw them in silhouettes, you can kind of pick them out. You can say, oh, that's so and so. Like if you look a good example would be the Scooby-Doo Mystery Gang. If you just put those characters in silhouettes, you can easily point out and say that's Shaggy. You know, that's Daphne. That's Velma. That's, you know, Scooby, obviously, or Fred. So, I mean, they all have, you know, those 5 characters, they all have different visual looks. You can look at a silhouette and you can tell who's who. So with the same thing with their personalities, I want them all to have kind of distinct personalities. So that will, you know, it helps the story. I mean, because this is really more of a story about the characters. The zombies, or the threat of the zombies, they're sort of in the background. They're this constant threat, but we're really focusing more on the characters. So I don't know if I'm rambling, or I don't know if I've intrigued you more, or like I said, it's really, you kind of have to read it and you get to know the characters a little better. It's hard for me to just explain now because I've got, you know, again, the way that I do these characters, I kind of know them in and out just based on who they're based on, or the few different people combined that they're based on, or just new characters that I've kind of thought out in my head. So I kind of know how they all react, and so when you're writing stories, it's good to think about that stuff. You just don't want all your characters to be like the Super Friends, where which I love that show, but come on, let's face it. I mean, you could take Batman and put him in Aquaman's costume, or Superman, and they're the same character. I mean, the voices are really kind of the same. They don't really have any, they never talk about their secret identities, so there's nothing other than them with their superpowers. They're pretty much the same characters in different costumes, and we don't want that. So yeah, think about giving your characters some personality, and I think your stories will be better for that. I'm going to go back to working some more on my dialogue and my script and everything, and get those 30 minutes in today because I haven't yet. Wish me luck on that, and I will see you guys tomorrow. That is all.